We have a gentleman by the name of Scott Galloway, who I am unfamiliar with. And then we also have one of the sharks from Shark Tank, Kevin O'Leary, who I think did simp for the Trump admin, discussing the legacy of DOGE, which was supposed to be the fiscal conservative cutting of the federal government that originally promised to cut $2 trillion. They reduced it to $1 trillion. They got it down to $150 billion. And then their recommendations went back to Congress, and then they cut $9 billion. And not only did they only cut $9 billion, the Republicans are still running a deficit. And the things that they cut are things like PEPFAR, which is treating AIDS worldwide, which is estimated to, if it remains cut throughout the Trump admin, to kill 3 million people. So kind of the dumbest way to approach fiscal conservatism possible. And so we're going to deal with a Trump and Elon shill versus a person who is critical of DOGE. Without further ado, last segment was kind of a bust, so we're just going to get into it. Let's let these characters take it away.
Impressed with Mr. Musk than I am. I think if somebody is making Nazi salutes, when someone is so severely addicted to drugs they can't get their shit together to show up to the White House without looking exceptionally high, I don't think that's the right role model for young men.
What you based? Thank you, Scott, my new hero.
Just heard there.
Dude, that's a strong 10-second opener. I am down.
Scott is Musk derangement syndrome. It's fair that he has those criticisms, but it doesn't distract or take away from the achievements the man has made so far and will make. That's my opinion.
Elon Musk has left the White House, but not without an extraordinary parting shot at the man he was instrumental in putting there.
LOL.
I'm sorry, but I just can't stand it anymore, he said on his platform X. This massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. It's a sharp change in tone from their Oval Office farewell on Friday, in which both men defended.
This is before he called him a pedo, too. For those of you who are watching this as a VOD, maybe you're in the future. Maybe this is decades from now, and you're watching this as a time capsule, okay? The world's most rich man, Elon Musk, who is worth almost $500 billion. He runs a spaceship company, an electric car company. He's run finance companies. He's run all these kinds of companies. And he's supposed to be the world's most brilliant man, but there's some chips in the narrative, so to speak. There's some cracks in the mirror, so to speak. Has achieved, or his companies have achieved, crazy technical marvels. And so people assume that he's a super genius. But he does wildly stupid things all of the time. And one of the things that he did most recently that was very funny is he said, the reason why the Jeffrey Epstein files have not come out is because Donald Trump is in them. Jeffrey Epstein was a financier who engaged underage prostitutes, recruited and groomed girl teenagers, and then paid them to have sex with wildly powerful people, likely in order to generate compromising materials for intelligence services. So the world's richest man called the president of the United States, aka the world's most powerful man, a pedophile. Incredible stuff.
Their unlikely bromance.
Elon has worked tirelessly helping lead the most sweeping and consequential government reform program in generations. And you know the kinds of things that he's found and his people have found. He's brought a group of very smart people. Thank you, Elon.
Thank you.
Take care of yourself.
Thank you. This is a lot. This is not the end of DOGE, but really the beginning. My time as a special government employee necessarily had to end. It was a limited time thing. It's 134 days, I believe, which ends in a few days.
So how did DOGE do? And is Elon okay? And what about the 6 major businesses he'll now return to running full time? Well, joining me are 2 economic heavyweights, Professor Scott Galloway, host of the Prof G Pod and Pivot, and Kevin O'Leary, the investor and Shark Tank star. Well, welcome to both of you. I can't think of 2 better people, frankly, to debate this. First of all, Kevin, I don't know where you were when that post from Elon dropped yesterday, but it was a bit of a jaw dropper. Here you've got the guy that was instrumental in helping Donald Trump get elected, incredibly publicly supportive of him. And then he goes on his own social media platform and tells 200 million people at the press of a button that Trump's big, beautiful bill on which he staked so much of his presidency is a disgusting abomination. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm working very closely on this bill as an advocate for small business in America. A lot of people don't realize that 70% of job creations in the U.S. is from small business, 5 to 500 employees. So we care a lot about this bill. There's a lot of things that we need in here, particularly on the tax side of things. But there's a lot in this bill that we don't like. And so I'm an advocate for their voices, and I'm going to senators and talking to them about what's the problem here. But what happened when that bomb dropped, and I think you've given it a good analogy, it was a bomb. It set off a narrative that Ron Johnson has carried forward in the last couple of hours as well. He just put out a chart, and he's not a lightweight. He's one of the votes that they may not get in the Senate if he's not made whole, so to speak. He's pointing out something very simple. This chart's very simple. It simply says pre-pandemic deficits were sub 1 trillion, regardless of administration. And all of a sudden, post-pandemic, they're all over 2 trillion. And that's not sustainable. And it's a good question. There's no question about it. That is a good question. Why is that the case? Now, he may have to get an answer, because that's exactly why Elon dropped that bomb. He wants an answer to that question too. And so they're putting a lot of pressure on lawmakers here to go find a way to get this closer to a break-even budget, not a $2 trillion deficit in perpetuity, which is not sustainable. Now, having said all that, I need this bill to pass in terms of all the businesses I've invested in, so I'm pro-bill, but I think we're going to have to deal with Ron Johnson's and Elon's question one way or another. Then there's another attribute that has just started to cause waves in the last 48 hours.
Come on, bro. Come on, bro. Let's go. It's intros. Fast, quick, snappy. Let's go.
And this was a little piece of legislation that was carried forward from 2 years ago that is just a cut and paste that's freaking out a lot of people right now. It provides a provision to the IRS to extend an audit period on small businesses from 3 years to 9 years in the case that they took any government grant money in the employment retention credit. I mean, it was an ERC program that many thousands, hundreds of thousands of businesses used, from $250,000 to $6-7 million in providing for their employees while the pandemic was on. And now they're saying, we're going to hang this audit threat over you, even though, and this is why it's gone crazy right now, the IRS does not have a statute of limitations on fraud. They can investigate anybody they want, but they want this built into the bill that will stop small businesses from being able to finance at the bank level, at the factoring level, or at mergers and acquisitions. This is really, really punitive, and I've gone to war against that, and I haven't found a...
Okay. If I'm trying to engage with this, is I'm hearing a rich dude complaining, which is fine. Rich people are entitled to complaints. Just because you're rich doesn't mean that you don't have any problems. However, what he said is, I don't even know what he said for 5 to 500 small businesses. He wants some kind of tax break to go through with them. And by the way, I'm for that. I'm for, particularly, like, I actually think that's a good delineating line. I actually think that businesses under 500 employees should probably have like an effective tax rate of like 10 or 20%. Because you're not a Walmart with 500 employees. You could become Walmart one day, but then you'll get taxed at a Walmart rate. Like, I don't know, 20% as an effective tax rate. So I'm okay with having, like, if you're small, we want you to grow, so we're going to take less money from you. I'm okay with that. This other thing, though, saying like, oh, well, we're worried about audits because it's going to hold up investigations, because we're not going to be able to secure financing, because the IRS is investigating fraud. I don't know why your financing is related to auditing whatsoever, where you should just say, well, we have nothing to worry about because we didn't commit any fraud during the ERC. So I'm going to, if he keeps yapping for like another 2 minutes, I'm going to give him like 60 more seconds to move it forward. If he doesn't move forward in 45 seconds, I'm going to fast forward until I see another mouth moving, because this is not the Kevin O'Leary show. This is Scott Galloway coming to rhetorically, hopefully, destroy Kevin O'Leary.
Senator yet, not a Republican anyways, that wants.
All right, I'm tired. There we go.
Today that the broad Republican bill, the big beautiful bill to cut taxes and slash some federal programs, would add $2.4 trillion to the already soaring national debt over the next decade. And they're categorizing that as an analysis that was all but certain to inflame concerns that President Trump's domestic agenda would lead to excessive government borrowing. And I think the significance of that, I mean, it's a little bit more than even Kevin was outlining there. The significance, I think, of Elon Musk blowing up in the way he did is it does seem to render almost everything he was trying to achieve with DOGE, which in principle seemed to me a terrific idea to try and take a swathe through government waste. I mean, you know, who wouldn't be against that? But if you're saving a few $100 billion by doing that, and at the same time, there's a bill, a big, beautiful bill coming in, which he now calls an abomination, which is going to cost $2.4 trillion on top of the existing debt, then it's pointless, isn't it?
Piers, thanks for having me. And Kevin, nice to meet you. I've heard a lot about you, but I don't think we've met. Yeah, this is nothing. I would argue that this big, beautiful bill is nothing but probably the biggest transfer of wealth from poor to rich, from young to old, and from the future to the past. Kevin mentioned small businesses like him. I've started and run small business. We're very sensitive to interest rates. And when you get to a point where the interest expense on the deficit is greater than your defense spending, nations go out of business. Nations aren't conquered, they go broke. And this type of fiscal irresponsibility, such that Kevin and I can have a tax cut that removes somewhere between 8 million and 13 million, depending on if you're listening to Republicans or Democrats, from the rolls of Medicaid, and creates this continued bipartisan, irresponsible approach to our fiscal management. Yeah, George Washington to George Bush, $7 trillion in deficits. And since then, we've racked up another $30 trillion. And let's be clear, it's been both Democrats and Republicans.
Do you know who the last person to have a fiscal surplus was? It was Bill Clinton. If we hadn't gotten involved in the war on terror, do you know when we would have paid off the national debt? 2013. Now we're not even close, to the point that I don't even know if it's worth worrying about, to the point that like it should be like a house of cards that we just, you know, we just keep stacking cards until they all fall down. That's where I'm at. Now, maybe I can be convinced by Scott Galloway that we actually can balance the budget. We can pay off our interest. The interest is worth paying off because we can get ahead fiscally. I'd be curious to hear what he has to propose. But a $2 trillion, if we're having problems cutting $150 billion and we're only getting 10 in the final bill, and we're running a $2.3 trillion deficit over the next decade, then what the hell are we talking about?
But until at some point there's an adult in the room and we get our fiscal house in order, all we're essentially saying is we want our children to have higher mortgage, credit card, and student loan interest payments and have a more difficult time starting businesses. So in
order to get tax cuts for people who are already doing quite well. That's what he's saying.
I think Kevin and I both agree this is irresponsible. I would argue that Republicans' solution to this recklessness is to cut more funding across the most vulnerable. And yet corporations have their lowest tax burden since 1929. The wealthiest 25 Americans are paying an average tax rate of 6%. And
that's crazy. Whatever financial vehicles, I'm sorry for getting all communist on you. My apologies to my conservatarian and libertarian bros. But if you're like a multi-billionaire to the point that you're like scratching, like Elon Musk is like scratching $1 trillion, whatever financial vehicle you're using for your personal wealth, for your personal income, whatever, that should have like a minimum tax rate of 10%. Anyways, I'm going to catch up with chat real quick because they're taking a little bit of time in order to get into it. Nope No says, Scott Galloway is a total boss. He also runs like 40 podcasts. Careful, he's going to have you voting Dem if you're exposed too much. Well, let's see what his opinion on guns are, and then we can talk, okay? Then scrolling, looking for anybody asking me just because chat's popping off a little bit. Hill Williams says, I worked for a small business and used the healthcare marketplace. Super worried about the effects if the bill passes as is. Okay, interesting. Scrolling. Haircut Commander says, this is the Kevin O'Leary gets destroyed by facts and logic show. I'm hoping you're right. Hedonistic Treadmill says, Galloway is one of my favorite dudes around right now. Yeah, but also he's on 1 HP. He needs to take his Vyvanse. He needs to drink his chalky milk. Sapien Green says, I'm not very economically savvy, but I find it very worrying that repaying the debt is the biggest budget point of the U.S. federal government. I don't think it is. I think it's around 800 billion, 900 billion. This is also charged at an interest rate of like 3%, which in my opinion, if you have 3% interest rate and then you have 2% inflation, I don't know how that's not free money. It's practically free real estate. Now, if somebody could explain it to me how we're actually going to bankrupt ourselves, I'll listen. There are people who are way smarter than me about economics, but I'm wary. I'm skeptical. Conservative liberalism says, so are you saying the post 9/11 military industrial complex is the reason we didn't pay off the debt in 2013? Yeah, I would say the war on terror is a big reason why we're in debt. Now, I like smoking jihadists, but maybe we could have smoked jihadists on a budget. We could have kept it all special forces and drones. No, I'm not advocating for a wealth tax. Let me explain that in a moment. Elon did try and reduce the debt. He did mean well, even if it hurt AIDS Africans. Rude. Jack Darko says, Connor, are you advocating for a wealth tax? No, I'm not. So let me try to explain something real quick. I'm gonna try to explain it as briefly as I can, because I understand that not everybody is interested in economics. Wealth tax would be all of my assets. Add up all of my assets. Let's say my car was paid off. Let's say my house was paid off. Let's say this was paid off, that was paid off, whatever. And you take all of my assets and you add it up to an evaluation of, let's say I'm worth a few $1,000,000. And then what would end up happening is you would say, okay, well, you're worth 3 million. We want $300,000. And so what I would have to do is I would have to take cash, and then I would have to pay that 300 grand if I had it in cash, or I would have to take out loans in order to pay a wealth tax. I think that's a terrible precedent. I think it doesn't make sense to tax assets. I don't think taxing assets makes sense at all, okay? Because if you have a depreciating asset, or if you have somebody who has a lot of assets, just because they have a lot of assets doesn't mean that those assets are generating revenue, right? So that doesn't make sense. I don't like wealth taxes. What I'm talking about is revenue, income tax, corporate income. Okay. Because what that means is that not only is there pro-social economic activity going on, but also there's probably profit. Oftentimes there's profit. And then you can tax a small amount of that economic activity in order to line your coffers so you can do the necessary functions of government, but you're taxing money that's going to be perpetual. Because while businesses rise and fall constantly within the United States of America, ideally, a healthy business is going to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow, and then maybe it'll stagnate and die. But there will be a replacement that takes it on and grows and grows and grows and grows and grows. So what I'm saying is, if there's an economic vehicle that the world's wealthiest, where like a poor person, let's say a working class person that's making 50 grand a year, 100 grand a year, let's say that their effective tax rate is 10%, where 10% of their income is going to the federal government as an income tax, then I think the world's richest people who are generating revenue, the world's richest companies that are generating a substantive revenue should have probably more taken out of their revenue than a working class schlub. That's what I'm saying. So no, I think wealth taxes are dumb, but I do think that an effective tax rate on income, we would have to talk about the income generating vehicles for rich people, because rich people do all sorts of crazy shit to shell their money. Randy Chang says corporate tax rate at 10% feels totally reasonable. I think we're at 20% currently. Yeah. But Randy Chang, I'm talking about effective tax rate, because what ends up happening is if you have a 20% tax rate for the corporate tax rate right now, and let's say you limit it to to businesses that have more than 500 employees, then what's happening right now is you have a 20% tax rate, and then you can have write-offs down to 0. And I think that you should be able to write down, let's say you operate at a loss during a year, but then you know that that loss is going to generate returns in the future. I think you should be able to, if you don't make a profit, I don't think you should be taxed, right? However, if you are making any kind of profit, then I think you should be hit with an effective tax rate of 10%, right? So you're not paying less than the working class schlub who's working for 40 grand a year at Dollar General. You know what I'm saying? So this might get complicated, but I actually do want to engage with chat because I'm sure we have some economically literate people that might give me flack. Grassroots says, watch Galloway's podcast. He gets much more animated, lol. Well, he needs to drink his chalky milk, doesn't he? Fung Dark says taxing traded equities sounds like it would increase liquidity in the market, which doesn't sound bad. Traded equities. So when you do a transaction, you just slap on like a 0.5% or a 1% tax or something like that on equities that are flowing back and forth. I would be Fung Dark. There's a people talk about, I forget what it's called, but it's effectively like a unrealized gains tax. I don't think unrealized gains should be taxed at all. I think that doesn't make any economic sense. However, and the argument being that stocks go up and down, right? Those can be gains and losses. And so if somebody is sitting on billions of dollars of stocks and then you tax them 10% of the unrealized gains, well, they might have lost money that year. So they would have to take out a loan in order to pay their tax bill. That doesn't make any fucking sense. But them paying 10 cents a trade, $1 a trade, 50 cents a trade, number one, they're not going to notice it. Number two, it has to do with pro-social economic activity. So Fung Dark, I don't think that's the craziest thing that I've ever heard. You're going to have to do @counterpoints in chat because it's still popping off a little bit. And I do want to get back to the content. Christian Blair says, would ban all sex work in the US except for Sin City and would potentially ban porn? Yep, pretty much. If somebody was asking about sex work, I was saying Goonopolis. So we'll make one city in a county in Nevada. It'll be next to Las Vegas, and it'll be Goonopolis. If you're a sex addict, you're a freak, you want to live that life, all that kind of stuff, move to Goonopolis. Otherwise, it's banned. Starhawk says, besides guns, literally all of Connor's positions are indistinguishable from the average Dem, which is fine, but I don't get the insistence on claiming to be a Republican because I'm not a populist and I believe in representative democracy over the demos. I also think that there's plenty of cringe Democrat bullshit and bad policy coming out of Democrats. So, you're indistinguishable is not, no. Like plenty of Democrats would think that I was a fascist, so don't worry about it. I'll give you some fashy takes later on to balance it out. Christian Blair says, yeah, that's what we were talking about. Severin says, soft power isn't that controversial among the left outside of tankies. True. Biz D says, aren't these loopholes to a corporate tax as opposed to taxing individuals? I heard somewhere that a corporation is just a locus of contracts. Yes. And there's also a question of double taxation, where if you tax a corporation and you tax the individuals who are making money, then effectively it's double taxation, but I don't know if I care. Yeah. Christian Blair is a gooner. Bernie suggested taxing trades, 20 cents per trade, I believe. Sure. Why not? Half a penny? Why not? That'd be dope. You don't even notice it. Did you see that Joe Walsh is considering running against Lindsey Graham? No, but that would be dope and I would support him. Jack Darko, last question before we get back into the content, says, sorry, I think I'm missing something. It makes a salary of $1 and gets paid $1 billion in stock options. I only paid 10 cents in tax, right? Yes, but with the stock options, when you liquidate, when you move, because that's an asset, okay? So Jack Darko, the way that billionaires are currently getting around it, let's say that you're given $1 billion in stocks. Those $1 billion in stocks can go up or down, right? And so a realized tax on profit would be, I don't even think that great of an idea, but it would say that you would only get taxed if it went up. Whereas unrealized profit doesn't make sense because the money could go down. And so taxing money that's going down doesn't make any sense because you're losing money. Taxing that transaction, you probably don't even have the money to cover your loss, let alone pay taxes. So I don't think that makes sense. The way that rich people are getting around taxes right now is when they have $1 billion in stocks, they take out a low interest rate loan against their asset. And that I don't think has a tax right now. And then when it comes due for that loan to be paid, they just take out another low interest loan and they just play round robin with all of the banks where they're effectively pulling an income from a loan and then they're paying off the loan when it comes due with another low interest loan because they have so many, they have so much assets. LB says, what, Connor? I think you're worried about being called a lib, but you talk like a lib sometimes. There's independent, Sure. If you're talking about capital L liberalism, believing in maximal freedom for human beings, I agree with that. But I'm pretty sure that I've gone on massive Jordan Peterson rants that half of the chat hated. So don't pretend that this is what pisses me off about it. And I'm not trying to be rude to DGG. I know there's plenty of DGG people in chat. I'm not Steven. Okay. Stephen and I see the world differently. I'm not trying to be rude to him, but I'm going to try to describe it. He doesn't believe in a God. He doesn't believe in a higher power. He only believes in the consequences of the material plane. And he basically lives his life that way. So he maximizes his pleasure and he minimizes his pain. I think that is degenerate. I think it probably hurts him in the long run, even if he doesn't realize it. And I think it could hurt and has hurt other people, right? Now he's maturing as he gets older, which is good. So maybe his hedonism will mature with age, but I still think it's a bad philosophy. And so within the realm of liberalism, we can both believe in maximal freedom. However, I am going to encourage Stephen, and I am going to encourage people like Stephen to not be nihilists, to pursue meaning, to listen to religious people, to listen to social conservatives, to listen to fiscal conservatives, and steelman what they have to say, because they do have good things to say. So what I'm saying is, if you want to call me a lib and you want to call Stephen a lib, and we both fall under lib, whatever. But I am saying that I am pretty far to the right of Stephen in the way that he conducts his life. And I do think that is rooted in some level of social conservative and fiscal conservative philosophy. Anyways, Biz D, dudes would make pilgrimages to Goonopolis as soon as they turned 18, and that would be their right. Goonopolis can have one of those like phallic parks like in Korea. Exactly. Jack Darko says, you are correct. That is not tax. I'm on the same page now. Thanks. No problem. Biz D says, Goonopolis might start a religion if we're not careful. Well, Stephen can be their high prophet. Dank Brandon says, he's a real Republican, not a MAGA fucknut, which means he has principles. Even if I don't agree with all of them, he actually believes it rather than just saying what daddy wants. I know. Isn't it frustrating? Now, Nope Knows says, fixing the loan and assets issue is simple. Destiny's discussed it. Simply tax the assets that the loan is based on, not necessarily to the extent as capital gains. I would have to discuss somebody who's a little bit more smart than me in order to agree to that. I am worried about taxing assets, though, because like I said, assets can depreciate. All right, let's go back to the Fung Dark says, I think Steve is more agnostic than he lets on. He just finds spirituality cringe. I think, sure, but we all got to grow up sometimes, right? All right, anyways, you guys are distracting. You're interesting, you're fun, you're cute, you're smart. You have 3,000 IQ, and I appreciate you as my chat. Please like the stream. That way other people know that we're live. Please super chat on Tuesdays when I'm live on my home channel so I can get that sweet, sweet revenue. Engage with the VODs. That way I get that sweet, sweet AdSense. And I parasocially love you. Let's continue the content.
I would also take issue, Kevin, that portraying the IRS as some sort of oppressive army. DOGE wants to cut the IRS by 40 to 50%, which will inhibit our ability to collect taxes that are owed. No one's showing up and harassing anybody. They're collecting. There are supposedly somewhere between $200 and $600 billion a year in what's called the tax gap. And these are the taxes that are legally owed that the IRS doesn't have the ability to collect because they are understaffed. For every $1 you invest in the IRS to audit the 0.1% and collect the taxes that are actually owed, you get $27 back. So essentially what the Republicans have done, in my view, is said, we're here to serve the 1% and defenestrate and emasculate our ability to collect taxes on them. And Democrats, the top 1%, pretend to care and clutch their pearls privately in dinner parties while going along with this because they know they're about to get wealthier at the hands of this tax cut. Put another way.
I need water. I'll be right back. Take it away, Scott.
The top 5% are going to see a tax decrease. The bottom 95% are going to see a tax increase. And the biggest tax increase is going to be on future generations. They're going to have to pay back these irresponsible deficits.
Studies show that strength training burns more fat than cardio alone and is critical for maintaining muscle mass and bone density as we age. Jacked Up Fitness has the perfect tool. The Jacked Up Power Rack Pro is the ultimate all-in-one home gym system for a full body workout, and you can do it in your spare room or garage. I'm delighted to say I now have one myself. So if you're new to strength training, there is a whole library of full body video workouts. You just press play and you follow along with top quality equipment and first class content.
Oh my Lord.
The IRS, I have no problem with them collecting their taxes. In fact, I don't consider them an enemy at all for small business. I work very hard through many of my companies to make sure they're compliant with the tax code because nobody in a small business can afford to be audited. It's just too difficult and they can't They don't have lobbyists. They have to just make sure they comply. What I don't want to see happen is a change in policy. Forever, you've kept your records for 36 months, whether you're a big or small business. And that's the way it's been in perpetuity. And it's also been in perpetuity that there is no statute of limitations on investigating fraud. So there's no need for the IRS to put this overhang over businesses that actually hurt, I estimate, their value by 20%. Who's going to give them a loan when they have a multi-million-dollar lien on them through this perpetual audit for 9 years? So that's one issue. But let's go back to this idea of the competition of nations. The reason you want to be in the middle of the G20 and corporate tax rates is tax money doesn't have any loyalty. It's very promiscuous, and so does investment capital. It goes at the path of least resistance. And so if all of a sudden you hike tax rates to where you're in the bottom quartile in terms of productivity and competitiveness, the money just leaves the country. And you don't want that to happen. We don't need the lowest tax rates in America. We need to be in the middle where we sit right now. Just look at a place like Abu Dhabi, where it's 9% tax rate. That's why billions, if not trillions of dollars from around the world is going there and incorporating there. They're not incorporating in Washington, D.C. or Boston, Massachusetts, because we're nowhere near 9%. So you got to keep that in mind. And also, we can't get away from the fact that small business, 5 to 500 employees, create the majority of the jobs. There is no American economy if there's no small business. There's 70% of job creation. And so you don't want to do anything to hurt their abilities to compete and maintain their staff and grow their businesses. And when you start to mess with corporate tax rates, that's exactly what happens. We don't have a lot of flexibility. Now, I agree. Is there waste in government spending? That was the whole DOGE idea. There is. Elon never found $2 trillion, but he only worked on it for 130 days. But the theme is now embedded in everybody's head, red and blue, that there must be a perpetual audit of government, and the brand is called DOGE, and that's okay. But now this bill that is trying to get through, and everybody's taking a shot at it, and I'm one of them as well, this bill has to pass just to protect competitiveness on tax rates. Now, how we get there, this is sausage being made, and Trump is unusual as a president. He doesn't mind keeping the cameras rolling while you see everybody going at each other.
You guys are more interesting than them, but that's okay. I am taking some things away from it, and I'm not as hostile to O'Leary as I was in the beginning, I'll tell you that. But I'm still waiting for Scott to get his dunks in. Sacred says, we should try arguing against MAGA for soft power through immigration. Don't want war, want less immigration, stabilize those areas they're emigrating from. Agreed, but then they always say it's not my problem. Jack Darko says, also Kevin O'Leary is just another dude who played a successful businessman on TV like Trump. Come on, common sense. Skeptic has a cute video series on him if you're interested. Okay. Maybe he's just talking, maybe he's just saying the rhetoric that I like, but me agreeing that businesses under 500 employees should be kept as vibrant as possible. I understand. They should still be taxed at a reasonable rate, but they should be kept as vibrant, versatile, flexible as possible. So I have to take a look at what are we going to gain through prolonged audits against companies who took the ERC, the employment relief shit, versus what are we going to gain by letting small businesses, quote unquote, let loose. I would have to do like a profit loss analysis, and I don't want to bore you guys to death with Googling a bunch of crap. So I'm going to let these guys continue to dunk on each other.
That's what he's doing. So you're watching sausage being made, but I think there will be a sausage. Not sure it'll be by the middle of July, but I think it'll happen in August at least. And what it looks like, we don't know right now.
Okay. Scott, just tangentially to all this, part of Elon Musk's anger might be connected to two other things going on with his life. One is the impact of his political activities on his business, particularly Tesla. You've seen a real backlash where he went from being the liberal darling, with people racing out to buy a Tesla to establish their liberal leanings, to being somebody liberals wanted to torch the Teslas because he was MAGA. So you've got that going on and the direct impact on his bottom line, and some initiatives coming in, obviously at government level, which are impacting on electric cars, for example. And you've also got a multiple number of reports in newspapers in the last few days about his alleged extensive use of drugs, including ketamine and ecstasy and Adderall. Let's talk about Elon for a moment. You know, he's gone out in a blaze of mayhem with these posts. But if you look at him and his brand, how damaged has he been by the last few months?
Well, it ends up here. So traveling around with your own pill box of Adderall, ketamine, ecstasy, and mushrooms while cutting.
I didn't see that sentence coming, and I just got flashbanged. Let's risk copyright again. Let's risk it for a biscuit. Blue Mountain State, suitcase, drugs. Blue Mountain State is this totally nasty, disgusting sex rampage TV show. And I'll see if I can fast forward it. But it's about a football team, and this is a hockey player who's totally crazy, and he wants to send Reacher onto a vision quest, and so he brings out a suitcase of drugs. And I'll just let it play here. Here, suitcase. So this is Elon Musk. Oh my God. What a classic.
Off funding for antiretroviral drugs to pregnant women with HIV, such that right now, according to the Associate Professor.
Ooh, Scott Galloway, birds of a feather, him and I are together. Before I let him go on this King rant, I am absolutely, this is going to be worth it for me. This clip alone is going to be worth it for me. So I'm going to check in with chat before I let Scott Galloway pop off. Sacred Snow, I agree with you. Fung Dark says, we aren't even wondering why Trump didn't invoke Insurrection Act to mobilize Marines, because expressly authorized by the Constitution to Trump means whatever the fuck I want until he gets challenged by a court. Yes, it does. Looking for @counterpoints in chat. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Yeah, that's another good clip that we could use in order to do that. Hey, it's the Reacher guy. Yes. Whatever says, hey, can take up as many ups and downs and likes as long as he keeps building rockets and robots. Yes, but Scott Galloway is about to use one of my talking points. Oh my God, he started with the ayahuasca. Yes, he did. He drank the whole bottle of ayahuasca. Severin says, sequel to Blue Mountain State coming? I doubt it. They released a movie a few years ago. Anyways, I'm sure Reacher is too busy. Alan Richardson is his name. Alan Richardson is too busy with Reacher to do another Blue Mountain State successor. They did a movie and it was gross, but it had a few moments. Anyways, Scott Galloway's about to pop off. Everybody put on your seatbelts. Pop off Scott Galloway.
And mushrooms while cutting off funding for antiretroviral drugs to pregnant women with HIV, such that right now, according to the Associate Professor of Global Affairs, Brooke Nichols, there are 1,500 babies being born HIV positive because of these cuts.
That right there is so unbelievably fucked up to me. And I can't believe the amount of conservatives who have brushed this off, even some family members. Okay. I brought this up in a conversation because we were talking about politics, a very passionate conversation. And I said, out of the $10 billion that has been sent back by Congress, $6.5 billion of it, which is $18 per taxpayer per year, was rescinded, and it was for PEPFAR, which was a bipartisan AIDS prevention program started by the Bush administration. And there is estimated to be between 50 and 75,000 people who will already die as a result of 120 days of cuts. And if this lasts for the next 4 years, it's estimated that 3 million people will die. And you know what my family member said? He said, not our problem. This is a social conservative, by the way. This is a Christian. This is somebody who values the sanctity of life. And I presented him with the choice of paying $18 per year in order to save, 3 million lives. And he was like, tough shit, skill issue. It's so unbelievably fucked up. I have no idea. It's because it's African people that you can't see from a slow disease that kills them slow. And we are disproportionately white folk in nice rooms across the world. So we don't give a shit about these people. But there are 3 million people that we could save if we were willing to spend $18 per year. And we're not going to. We're going to kill 3 million people because we fucking feel like it. It's disgusting. It's repulsive. Melody says, Scott does have a podcast with his co-host Sarah Swisher, which is good, but kind of dry and slow, but they both seem like cool people to get a drink with. Shows called Pivot. Okay. I mean, Scott seems cool so far. And the fact that he took my talking point and said it out loud on national television, obviously this is YouTube, but still, it's a large platform. The fact that he did that actually heartens me. It makes me feel better. Whatever says they should not be giving a birth with HIV. They should be tested. You can't cure HIV. No shit. Whatever 4690. I love you. So when I get hostile with you, do not take it personal. He's talking about retroviral drugs. Drugs that the mothers can take in order to reduce their HIV count to the point that they might as well not have it so they don't pass it to their kids. And did he say 1,500 kids per day?
Viral drugs to pregnant women with HIV, such that right now, according to the Associate Professor of Global Affairs, Brooke Nichols, there are 1,500 babies being born HIV positive because of these cuts. It ends up that...
So I don't know if 1,500 is over the course of 120 days or if it's 1,500 per day. But the point is that it's already 60 to 75,000 people will die as a result of the pause of the program. And if it stays paused for the next 3 or 4 years, we're going to kill 3 million people.
When the wealthiest man in the world is killing the poorest children in the world, it ends up that's bad for business. And you have European nations that have seen a decline in Tesla sales anywhere from 20% in France to 65% in Northern European countries. And in the US, sales are down 11%. Right now, Tesla's sales are declining faster than any automobile company in the world. So his brand, the Tesla brand, according to Ipsos, has gone from the 7th most aspirational brand in the world amongst the likes of Apple and Microsoft and Amazon to the 95th place. So I think people have decided, I mean, quite frankly, this distinct of the morality.
The question is whether or not he deserves it, because conservatives will be like, oh, well, that's your fault for mixing politics and business. I can't believe you're attacking electric cars as liberals and Democrats. And it's like, yeah, no shit. Left-wing people care about the environment, but they also care about the CEO killing 50,000 to 75,000 people within 120 days and killing 3 million people over the course of 5 years. The fact that this isn't like a mainstream headline, I have no idea why Democrats are asleep at the wheel. I have no idea why this isn't like a broad story that effectively we're killing people to the extent of like a World War II battle through incompetence and negligence. I have no idea why this isn't a mainstream talking point, but I swear to God, you're asking me why I'm not a Democrat, by the way. It's because I could not identify with this level of incompetence. Because you know what Republicans do? Republicans cut taxes and then they do whatever the hell else they want to do. You know what Democrats do? They talk about all these highfalutin ideas about how they're going to improve the world, and then they can't execute the most simple, optical, political goals or wins. This is why I can't identify with Team Democrat. It's because they're led by morons who are asleep at the wheel. No offense. Love ya, DGG. Love ya, liberals in my chat, but holy shit, your leaders are inept. Val says, a lot of the women here don't have a choice in getting pregnant. True, Val. LB says, but Connor, we have hungry and sick people here. Lol. Yeah, and then we don't take care of them either. Dominic Gayata says, there are studies now ongoing that are possibly showing the efficacy of an mRNA vaccine to killing HIV based. Bug123 says, my legs are really stiff from squats on Monday. Does ice and heat help for stiffness? No idea. Good luck. Fung Dark says, Guatemala had a decades-long civil war and genocide of natives that happened after we installed a government there. But hey, Why would context matter to MAGA? Sure. Jack Darko says there are similar projections for malaria with the demolishing of the presidential malaria initiative, an extra 30 to 40K deaths per year, a 40% increase because we're not providing effing mosquito nets. Holy shit. LB says it's millions of people. Yes, 1,500 a day. These women are already pregnant and those are HIV positive. No shit. That was not why they were burning Teslas. Well, that's why I'm not going to burn somebody else's property. I'm not like an actual, resist lib who throws bricks into, windows and burns shit, right? Strongly worded letters. I love Chuck Schumer. So based. Nope says your relatively responded skill issue is the common response to AIDS in Africa. Dems don't focus on it because most Republicans don't care. Yeah, that's bad. It's bad. LB says, but you vote with the people who cut USAID, make it make sense, Connor. Republicans control Congress. I haven't voted for Republicans in 2 election cycles because they're evil pieces of shit. I identify principally with the values that I was raised with. The Republican Party has lost its fucking mind. I didn't vote for Trump. I didn't vote for Trump in 16. I didn't vote for him in 20, and I didn't vote for him in 24. I voted local. Thorson says, both sides are doing schadenfreude. I don't care what you think. I love to offend you, preventing using our words to resolve disagreements. Sure. All right. Anyways.
Of what estimates are that 300,000 children have died so far because of the cuts to USA. Distinct of that, let's just...
Hold on. How many?
1,000 children. Distinct of the morality of what estimates are that 300,000 children have died so far because of the cuts to USA. Distinct of that, let's just talk about this.
Watch him totally ignore it too.
Economically, you're seeing a brand erosion, the likes of which we've never seen before. And quite frankly, the 75% of Republicans who these programs appeal to more would never consider buying an EV. So from a straight kind of business standpoint, to go so red pill and to be seen as this cruel and this coarse, distinct of the moral implications, distinct of the reduction in soft power that America enjoys, distinct of our reputation as the good guys being trashed.
Oh my God! Don't moral frog in my chat. I'm going to assume this isn't a moral frog, and I'm going to answer it. I'm going to answer it earnestly. But if you moral frog at me, don't do it. Dandelion's Redux says, so you just voted local for Republicans that are helping Trump enact his will? No. I looked at the individual candidates and I read their bio and I read their policies, and then I voted for the one that I thought was going to be most effective.
This is just really bad for business for Tesla.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin, Scott was referencing there an appearance by Bono on Joe Rogan. We've got a clip from that. Then I'll ask you a question off the back of this.
Listen, LB. All you Democrats who are so desperate to recruit me into your movement, let's go ahead and go full screen for this. Let's go full screen for this. You're not going to like what I say, but you've said it enough, so I'm going to address it. All the Democrats who are trying to recruit me in order to openly identify as a Democrat, this is what's going to happen. I would come in and I would take over the fucking party. I'm not following you on your cringe DEI bullshit. I'm not following you on intersectionality. I'm not following you on your progressive fucking libs, cuck, white people need to shut up and sit down and stand by. I'm going to be fucking loud and I'm going to be annoying as shit. I'm going to tell you to shut the fuck up about guns. I'm going to tell you that mixed economy capitalism is the best vehicle for human well-being since the inception of time. So you can kiss your fucking socialist commie bullshit goodbye. Boom. All the socialists and communists, kick the fuck out of the party. Hassan Piker, all your friends who are further left than sock dems, out of the fucking party. I don't want to hear a single fucking peep from them. You know why? Because they're freaks and they alienate moderates. Okay? So kiss your socialism goodbye, kiss your communism goodbye, kiss your gun control goodbye. And on top of that, you're going to have to deal with a moderate stance on abortion. You think you can shout your abortion on Medium articles and New York Times op-eds? Fuck you. Safe, legal, rare. And on top of that, it's 20 weeks or 18 weeks. And then after 18 to 20 weeks, if the fetus is viable, tough shit. You're keeping the fucking baby. Okay? So if you want to come my way on abortion, if you want to come my way on guns, if you want to let a white straight male tell people of color to shut the fuck up, then sure, let's do it. I'll be fucking King Democrat. I'll be fucking, I'll literally be the Republican Democrat. I'll be the conservative Democrat. I'll do any of that shit. But I don't want to fucking hear from you when you're like, oh, Connor, you should just vote for our soy lib cuck candidates. No, I'll make the choice of lesser of two evils all day. And in the past decade, Democrats have been the lesser of two evils, but don't pretend I'm one of you, and don't pretend that you like my policies, because you don't. Whenever I bring up my perspective on guns, abortion, intersectionality, all that bullshit, half of my fucking chat rebels and half of my chat says based. So don't pretend that I'm exactly like you. You're fucking coping. Okay? How about them goddamn apples?
Just recent report. It's not proven, but the surveillance enough suggests 300,000 people have already died from just this cut off, this hard cut of USAID. So there's food rotting in boats, in warehouses.
Now, as he said there, Kevin Bono, he doesn't know for sure that figure is correct, but there's certainly mounting concern that a lot of people are being directly impacted health-wise, including people who may die as a consequence of these cuts that have been made. Musk has responded on X. He branded Bono such a liar stroke idiot. He said 0 people have died as a result of USAID cuts. In a later exchange, he says South Park lampooned Bono as the biggest shit in the world, and they were right. So he's fired into Bono, but the dramatic cessation of much of what USAID did, surely, I mean, inevitably would have impacted significantly on things like public health, wouldn't it?
Yes. And I.
Fine. All the libs in my chat are like base. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna get the conservatarians, the libertarians who like freedom and the Constitution in the United States, and some level of fiscal responsibility within government, but they're not total anti-status. We're gonna get the liberals, and we're gonna make a center coalition, and we're gonna push out the authoritarian MAGA crypto fascist fucking freaks from the right. They're not a part of our coalition. And we're gonna push out the fucking commies and the socialists and the authoritarian freaks on the left. And then we're gonna have our own thing. So if you're a lib and you're like based, I like guns, I like moderation on abortion, I like mixed economy capitalism, I liked all this shit, then help me build the fucking center. And if we recruit more liberals than we recruit conservatarians, fine. It is what it is. The principles matter at the end of the day. But I am not going to get called a fucking lefty or a commie by lefties and commies. I am not you. Okay? I'm also not going to apologize for valuing freedom of conscience, freedom of speech, right to self-defense, and limited government, those are the principles I was raised with as a Republican. So just because Republicans have forgotten what Republican means, because they no longer believe in a republic, okay, help me build the center coalition. I'm perfectly fine with being a coalition Republican or a Republican Democrat or whatever fucking branding we come up with, but I'm not far right, and I'm sure as fuck not far left. In my antipathy towards the far left, weirdly enough, because even though they're politically inefficacious, they're still annoying as shit. My antipathy towards the far left oftentimes exceeds my antipathy to the far right, because I can at least understand the far right. I think they're stupid and wrong, but I understand them. But this is just literally 2010 and earlier Democrat Starhawk says. Guess what? Conservatism, Burkean I've already been over this. Are you new? You're new. It's okay. Burkean conservatism is progressivism doing the speed limit. That's actually it. Okay? Edmund Burke was in the French Revolution. The revolutionaries did a whole bunch of crazy shit, and he said, we can't do that. And then the rigid traditionalists wanted to hold on to all the rigid traditionalist shit, and he said, we can't do that. We need a way to inculcate social reform at a pace that's reasonable. And so it's the job of a conservative in order to needle progressives and liberals on their bad ideas, so the bad ideas die, and then the good ideas get implemented. And that is the job of a conservative. That's just Edmund Burke. So you're saying, hey, Connor, you believe 100% with the father of conservatism, but you're a Democrat from 20 years ago. Yeah. Christian Blair says, in a perfect world, Dems did all that, but kept sex work and porn. Are you still King Dem? Yeah, but I'm going to be really mean to the sex workers. I'm going to be really mean to all the gooners. And it's a pronatalist. And it's pronatalist, by the way. All you fucking degenerates who snapped off your fallopian tubes and snapped off your vas deferens, you're fucking wrong. You can be a part of the party, but I'm going to treat you worse. All right. Can we agree on Medicare for all? No, we need a multi-payer system. School meals, yes. Gun regulations, maybe. We'll talk about which gun regulations. Vrencan says, holy shit, the Democratic Party needs you, lol. I'd vote for you. Well, then I need some kind of label. I need a label so I'm not you. You know what I'm saying? Where I'm saying, like the Homelander speech where it's like, I am better. Like we need a label. We need some kind of label that still communicates I'm a fucking chud somewhere. Because I'm going to say racist shit every now and then. I'm going to say sexist shit every now and then. I'm going to have chud takes on abortion and guns. I'm going to have chud takes on immigration. I'm going to have American imperialist shit. So, no. And fuck you, LB. You're fucking with me. I know you're fucking with me. Michelle Eggleton says, Connor, I'm fine with the viability standard. I'm fine on guns, and intersectionality should only really apply to interpersonal level. Gun rights and trans rights, cool. Let's go. All right. All right. Come up with some way. It's like chud liberal or something, or chud Democrat, or Republican Democrat, or classical Republican. I have no fucking idea how to communicate it. I think Never Trump is actually fine with it. But you guys don't seem to agree that's sufficiently left to appeal to Democrats. Sacred Snow says, clip that shit, run for office in Florida, bro. Unironically, the best pro-Dem message I've seen in a while. What's a way to say, like, not a pussy? I don't know. All you had to say was get rid of Hassan. Sacred Snow says, dead ass, clip that if you ever plan on running. That should be your stump speech. All right. Well, somebody get a timestamp. All right. Thank you, Thorson. I appreciate you. Bull Moose, progressive Republican. I could do that. I could do progressive Republican. That was Bull Moose. I'm already accused of being a progressive anyways. I'm progressive compared to most chud Republicans. I'm progressive compared to MAGA. That could be all right. There already is a central coalition. It's called the Democratic Party. Nobody is going to fight you on that point, Connor. Bullshit. Bullshit. If I go on TikTok right now, I would be cannibalized. Not that TikTok is the Democratic Party, but you know what the fuck I'm saying. Afro Jew says, my Zoomer brother literally told he's decided with a friend that they're actually shifting parties to become pro-gun Democrats based, and I just couldn't follow them. Nice. LB, you're just fucking with me. I know you're fucking with me. All right. Anyways. So when are you adding the hammer and sickle behind you? See? That's the kind of shit I can't fucking stand. Fuck you. Just beyond design. Even though I know that you're fucking with me. Let's call it the guerrilla Democrats. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Anyways. All right. I'm gonna pause chat real quick because if I keep engaging with chat, we're never gonna get through the content. So let's get through a little bit more content as we're talking about the center coalition.
I can't refute some of the facts that Scott has detailed there in terms of just the data. But you could have looked at that data decades ago when there was found some poison in a Tylenol bottle and seen a total collapse in that brand in the matter of 6 weeks. And today it's 10x what it used to be. And so there are periods of any brand where they go into crisis. But if there's merit to
notice how he's totally sidestepping the 300,000 preventable deaths. Notice how he's totally sidestepping 1,500 new AIDS infections every day. Notice how he's totally ignoring the malaria and the mosquito nets that cost us cents on the dollar that's killing hundreds of thousands of people. Notice how he didn't even think for a second. Like this is my problem. I have a very vivid imagination. So I can imagine, because I've been a lot of places, I can imagine Africa. And I can imagine different parts of Africa. That there's the grasslands, there's Ethiopia, there's the desert parts of North Africa, like Tunisia. There's West Africa that's kind of like jungly, but a lot of it's been civilized and cut out. And they have like those red roads because it's more like clay. I can picture all of that shit in my mind. And then I can picture like a West African person because they're dark skinned. And, you know, I can picture their features because I've seen plenty of West African people. And then I can imagine a mother who is giving birth to a child who has a disease that could have been prevented. And as a result of that disease, they will not have an immune system. And so within the next decade, they're going to get a cold. And that mother is not only going to die herself because that cold, she no longer has her own immune system because HIV is attacking her immune system, but that child is going to die as well. And so it's almost going to be a blessing for that mother to die before her child dies. But there's also going to be cases where the child dies before the mother dies. And that's what I'm thinking about. And you know what Steve O'Leary, this vampiric sociopath, fucking heard when he heard about it? I don't even know if you heard it because it wasn't brought up on the stream. But he said Tylenol had all sorts of brand risks that would have hurt it when Tylenol was revealed to be partially lethal in certain dosages. He didn't think for a fucking second about any West Africans dying. He thought about brand depreciation. Thanks, Kevin O'Leary. You are the vampire fucking freak that everybody stereotypes. And I hope Scott Galloway calls you out momentarily.
To the product, and it solves a pain point, they tend to recover. And I would argue that's going to happen in the case of Tesla, because let me ask a question from 30,000 feet.
What about the 250,000 dead people we just described to you in vivid detail, Kevin O'Leary? What about that? Do you think Tesla should recover as a brand after killing 3 million people?
If you look at the controversy, and there's no question Elon Musk is a very controversial individual. There is just no question about that. But then you set that aside and say, can we look at the track record of executional skills on mandate he is elected to take on, whether that be SpaceX or Starlink or Tesla or anything he's touched? He's the most remarkable individual. And I used to say this about Steve Jobs, who I worked for, that he was 80% signal and 20% noise. In other words, in any given day, as Jobs used to tell me, I'm going to get the 5 things I have to get done, and I will not let noise get in the way in this 18-hour cycle, and you should follow me and do the same. And that worked for him. Look at what he achieved. Then you look at Elon Musk, and I'd argue to anybody listening, Elon is the only individual that I've ever met that's 100% signal. He does not even deal with noise. I've watched him walk away, and I've used this example countless times because I've seen it. He'll walk away from a conversation the second he thinks it's a waste of his time. He's not garnering any information that's useful. And he's very awkward socially. But look at what that man has achieved, and he's only 50% through being the modern day Da Vinci, if you want to call him that. There's nobody on earth that's achieved as much as he has. And of course, that's going to draw criticism, whether it comes from a rock star that wants to be a politician. I love U2 music, but I don't listen at all to Bono's politics. I don't think he spends a lot of time worrying about it until he's talking on air. I'd rather he write music that I can enjoy. I'd rather listen to what Musk has to say in terms of moving forward on these mandates that solve huge problems for mankind. Where would the Ukrainian soldiers be without Starlink?
Yeah.
Where would people be without Teslas that provide incredible value for the dollar in the low-cost versions? Or what about SpaceX? Will we get to Mars? Well, if we are, it's going to be because of Elon Musk.
If you've ever felt like you're being...
Wow. Commercial break. Scott, you cannot let that go, man. If you let that go, I'm going to be disappointed. Totally sidestep. So for those of you who don't realize what just happened, Scott Galloway says it is estimated that the Trump admin, through their cuts, have killed around 300,000 people. It is there are people in Africa, 1,500 people a day, who are getting new infections of HIV and AIDS. And so Elon has a massive brand implosion as a result of helping the Trump admin kill some of the world's most vulnerable people. And Scott Galloway, or not Scott Galloway, Kevin O'Leary says, yeah, well, you know, brands go through ups and downs, and Elon Musk is a genius. And then he just he took his lav mic off and he jammed it into the back of his throat so he could simulate fellatio that he would perform on Elon Musk if he was legally allowed to do so. So, Scott, you cannot let that go. Do not let that go.
I was standing with him in the line to meet President.
I don't care about you blowing Scott. Let Scott go.
But no,
Scott,
but Dan
Scott,
is going to be the big,
cannot let that go.
possibly technology of, as you saw, doing the
Genius. I'll use Star.
arena.
I don't think you can deny his genius. I'll use Starlink on my flight to London in a couple days, and it's a superior product. I owned a Tesla. But
please do not let the 300,000 dead people and the 3 million people projected to die over the next 4 years go. Do not let it go, Scott. If you do, I'm gonna be disappointed.
somehow we've decided in America that innovation and money replaces or obviates or excuses depravity. Cutting off aid to...
Thank you. Fuck. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Scott. Please continue. God, thank God.
HIV positive mothers.
Yes. Fuck. So nice having a smart person in the room.
Deciding what veterans should get benefits. Cutting off SNAP payments, which have shown to have a
Dude, he rubbed his eye because he was like, fuck, he didn't let it go.
positive net return when people run out of money for food at the end of the month. I mean, I think one of the wonderful things about being an American, and quite frankly, for me, what it means to be a man and what I try to teach my boys is the whole point of prosperity is such that you can protect people. And I think the two of you are more impressed with Mr. Musk than I am. I think if somebody is making Nazi salutes, if somebody is being sued concurrently by two women for sole custody of their child because that person has not spent any time with that child, when someone is so severely addicted to drugs, they can't get their shit together to show up to the White House without looking exceptionally high, I don't think that's the right role model for young men. So,
boom! Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Scott. You didn't hit it as hard as I wanted you to, but at least you hit it, okay? So let's take a look at this real quick because I want to share you. I want to flex some of my socially conservative bona fides, okay? Whew. So, lived Christianity, even if you're not a Christian literalist, is voluntary upward self-sacrifice in order to build the kingdom of heaven on earth. You could just say like a good planet, whatever. So you can still engage in lived Christianity, even if you don't believe in Christ. And that cosmos itself is rooted in voluntary self-sacrifice, and that voluntary self-sacrifice tends to be good for you and for others, right? The 3 pillars of biblical masculinity, this is from Jordan Peterson, by the way, is tough enough to fight predators, resourceful enough to survive, and capable of nurturing and defending the vulnerable. Scott just said brilliantly that it's not good enough to be tough. It's not good enough to be resilient. It's not good enough to just be rich and powerful and resourceful. If you don't use that for good moral ends, then you're not a good man. That is phenomenal. It's like a breeze of cool air on my face. It's great. And then if you look at their Aristotelian virtues, then you got courage, temperance, liberality, magnificence, magnanimity, ambition, truthfulness, wittiness, friendliness, modesty, righteous indignation. And there's arguments about like what virtues you should live. This is just like Aristotle's summary of the virtues that he thinks are good in a human being. And so Piers Morgan and Kevin O'Leary are schlobbing. They are schlobbing Elon Musk because he's ambitious, but they are ignoring the fact that he has no magnificence and no magnanimity. And I would have to look these words up. But effectively, like one of them is like being just in your dealings. And the other one is like, if you have wealth, You use your wealth to make the culture better. And so Scott Galloway, without even knowing it, is calling out virtues that have been embedded in our societies for thousands of years. And he's fundamentally correct. And this person is I'm going to cuss. He's a fucking vampire. And this person is a sycophant for vampires. So Scott, you are a king amongst men. I wish you hit it harder. I wish you were more pissed off, but good for you.
So what I would ask to all of us is look at what money has done to us. That if someone can land a rocket on metal scissors or create a great AV, he's a genius. He's the wealthiest man in the world. But does that mean we should excuse depravity? Does that mean, unlike Bill Gates, he's not using his billions to help people? He's not planting trees, the shade of which he won't sit under?
Scott, stop spitting. I can only take so much.
I think this is an individual who has literally come off the tracks, who is rabidly addicted to drugs, and is using his immense power to get people elected, and that too many of us excuse what is abhorrent behavior. I think his legacy is not going to be an EV or putting rockets into space. I think it's going to be unnecessary death, disease, and disability of the world's most vulnerable. That is not what it means to be an innovator. It's not what it means to be an American. It's not what it means to be a man.
Boom! Get some, Scott. Get some. I'm going to engage with chat real quick. The devil, welcome aboard, I guess. It has nothing to do about building a new party. It's about excising the online stuff, progressives that suck all the energy out of the centrist support for Dems. Sure. But you're going to have to come my way on guns and abortion. The Silver Jacket Man says, as far as I'm concerned, you can call yourself whatever you want party-wise. Neither party fits me 100% either. We'll need a new name for it. The Whigs? Yeah, let's be the new Whigs. Silver says, is smut the same as porn to you? You'd have to differentiate them definitionally for me. Yeah, anyways. Conservative liberalism says, progressives want to erode natural rights, and going along with it at speed limit isn't much better. Payne had it right, I'm telling you. Yeah, but conservative liberalism, excellent name, by the way. The goal would to not concede the things that are necessary for a culture to self-replicate and be healthy. So there are some things that you would concede, but there are some things that you wouldn't, right? Jonah Boy says, sex workers have it coming. They're becoming millionaires from butthole pics and thinking they're better than the rest of us. Good. A cribberal? I don't know what that is. Pronatalism, let's go. You're hitting all the right points. The fuck it party, I guess. Data Line says the Democratic Party is not a monolith. There's room for disagreement, unlike the other side. I'm going to say lol to that. Rude says, at Counterpoints, these people are tripping. Republicans need people like you and their party, bringing them back to liberalism and away from whatever the insane stuff is. Thank you. I agree with you, but that's okay. Progressive conservative label, showing you want to conserve the good ideas and progress the bad. Wait. I don't know if you said that correctly, but sure. Prosperity liberal. Okay. You guys are going to have to like guns a lot more than you do right now. Conservative liberalism says, do what Sargon did. Just call yourself a liberalist, but secretly be an ethno-nationalist. Guerrilla Dems. I love it. Secret ethno-nationalism. Not a wussy is definitely not a terrible tagline. Yeah. What's a progressive Republican stand for? It's basically Teddy Roosevelt. And if I could reincarnate Teddy Roosevelt right now, I would. LB says, I'm not. I own guns. Reasonable regulations is not a wild idea. Abortions already have limitations. Most progressives agree. We want to protect the environment. All right. Welcome to the party, comrade. God, I hate you guys. Tylenol strong as fuck. True. Just looking for at counterpoints, so I'm not reading everything. Sorry, my apologies. Nope no says real Republican, Democrat with a spine, the muscular classical Republican. Yeah, we got to work on it. We need some branding. My best friend's mom has AIDS. I don't think he knows that she might be in danger. Lol. Like, I don't know if you're joking or I don't know if you're being serious about it. There's a massive difference between a product defect issue and the negative marketing value of how political Elon has been. True. LB says, by the way, progressive possesses far more Christian values and morality than most Christians and actually act on them. Don't cringe me with your fedora. Pretty sure that's just autism. Man. Rude says, I thought you wanted to ban porn, but we're watching it. You guys are evil, but very funny. All right, last one. Michelle Eggleton says, Blue Dog Democrat. Also, sorry for trying to spell your name before double checking it on Twitter. Don't worry about spelling my name wrong. I don't really care. And actually, I think you got it right. Yeah, Blue Dogs can be that way, but then Blue Dogs also sign up for, sometimes they'll cater to libs, and also they're very oftentimes anti-gun. They're like, I am a farmer and a rancher and I have guns. And then they show you like the most weak ass bolt action rifle you've ever seen in your entire life. It's very lame. Silver Jacket Man says, I am so sick of modern tech CEOs being compared with Da Vinci or physicists. They are businessmen. They don't know anything about science. They didn't invent products. Maybe. I think Starship's a massive achievement. But let's go ahead and hit this for another couple of minutes, and then I think we're going to wrap, to be honest. I do have a meeting soon. But anyways, let's hit this.
Wow. Kevin, what do you say to that?
That's a tough criticism.
It's a tough criticism. 300,000 dead people, 3 million people dead over the next 4 years. I don't know. I just think the brand, I think it's going to bounce back.
And that's certainly the kind of controversy that surrounds him and has almost since he came on the scene at the PayPal days. He has distractors. Scott's one of them. I get it.
Address the 300,000 dead people. Address the 3 million people projected to die in the next 5 years, Kevin. I wish your mom had grabbed you by the ear and washed your mouth out with soap, you dingus.
You know, I would have kept that. There's a concept now that I deal with every day called Trump derangement syndrome internationally when I have to work in Abu Dhabi.
You pusillanimous fogey loser. Bear in mind, in my brain, these words are much worse. He's going to say that Scott has Elon derangement syndrome because he's killed 250,000 people. Nice sidestep, you pusillanimous fogey.
Abu Dhabi or in Zurich, and I get into a meeting and they want to go into a diatribe about Trump, and I say, this is a useless use of time. I'm not here to debate politics. I'm here to debate policy because we don't make money.
Politics and policy are necessarily intertwined. Politics is who wields power and how, and policy is the how. Pretending that these things are somehow differentiated shows me that you're lying or dumb.
In politics as investors, we make money with policy. So if we could just use our valuable time together to look at the policy and see if there's an investment opportunity together. But I can't, and I don't care to get into debating Trump derangement syndrome. But what you just heard there from Scott is Musk derangement syndrome. And I get it. And I think it's fair that he has those criticisms. But
Elon recommended cuts that the Trump admin and Congress has enacted that has allegedly already killed 300,000 people and is on the verge of killing 3 million people over the next 4 years. Your response so far has been you have Elon derangement syndrome. That is not a very good argument, and I hope Scott, rhetorically, I should specify, rips your face off and eats your skin on live television. I am hoping that rhetorically that happens next.
it doesn't distract or take away from the achievements the man has made so far and will make. And I'm an advocate.
It obviously does.
For executional excellence, because in the end, if you burn your calories trying to change someone who you know is not going to change, and don't focus on the output that he can provide and the great solutions for mankind he has provided and hopefully will with robotics you talked about, then you are in the form of being dominated and controlled by a derangement syndrome. That's my opinion. And I've so far avoided that and I work a lot in Washington now. And, you know, I'm very, very fortunate to be able to work on a bipartisan basis because I represent entrepreneurship and job creation for small business. And that's bipartisan. Even AOC and Elizabeth Warren want to support that. And I can have my narratives with them. But when we get into Trump derangement, I shut off. And it's just a waste of time. And I think that's a waste of time criticizing, that he's not a man. I mean, I just find that, and I respect Scott. I mean, I respect his opinion. I respect all opinions, but let's burn our calories moving the needle forward.
Why is Piers pretending that this is insightful at all? And this is what I want Scott Galloway to do right now. Hold on.
Grab his dick and twist it!
Oh my God, dude, this is an MMA fight, dude.
You twist that dick!
Twist his dick!
Twist his dick!
Oh my God, dude. Oh my God.
Oh, dick twist!
That's what I want Scott Galloway to do right now.
Is my view.
I would also add to that, Scott. Look, I think you make some very valid points about USAID, and I really want to see the data on that when it comes in, is to see exactly what the bottom line impact has been, and if it is anywhere near the levels that you and Bono think it's going to be or is being, it's clearly going to be appalling. But I would say on the derangements,
300,000 dead. It's like listening to Hassan talk about like terrorism. It's like, it's inappropriate.
Syndrome aspect of Musk and Trump, they both attract a huge amount of support and plaudits and aggro and so on. You referenced there that he did a Nazi salute. And
okay, I'm not doing that. Well, hold on. Let's see.
I don't think you
Scott's response.
The argument saying the Democrats that is often the only.
They always
term
throw in a
range,
commercial right before
30%
Scott screw up the
levy to people when they don't have a cogent argument to counter the arguments I'm making. I would call my.
Let's give him every moment. Coming out strong. Wait, hold on. Did I go before the commercial?
But I would say on the derangements salute, on about delivering real research, longevity, and nothing else. Only at Piers don't 30%.
I would call levy to people when they don't have a.
Here we go.
I think derangement, the term derangement, is usually something levied to people when they don't have a cogent argument to counter the arguments I'm making.
Get him!
I would call myself someone who's been infected with democracy addiction syndrome and is allergic to the type of depravity that these individuals are demonstrated.
Woo! Get him! Twist it!
I generally haven't seen Senator Booker's gesture. I think Steve Bannon and Elon Musk both gave Nazi salutes. I've watched the tape a bunch of times. This is an individual who's decided there's a white genocide against Africana farmers. I think he knew what he was doing. It might have been a tick, but he seems to be very disciplined about not making remarks or comments with respect to China. Whenever there's money on the line in a society where he may not have the same rights of free speech, he seems very disciplined. So, yeah, we have a fundamental disagreement. I do believe it was a Nazi salute or a Nazi gesture. I don't see other Republicans accidentally making hand gestures that remind them of the Third Reich.
But Cory Booker did. I mean,
Woo! Get him, Scott! I wish he would wake up and take a few pills, but, that's fine. It is what it is. Not everybody's going to have the same energy as Twitch and YouTube politics, which is, you're killing 300,000 people. You're going to kill 3 million. What's your excuse, you scumbag? That's the energy I want to see, but I understand Scott Galloway and I, we run in different circles. Okay. That was miserable. I hate you guys. I love you. All right. I parasocially love you. Have a beautiful day. Watch the VODs. I'm going to go eat barbecue. I like the stream. Mwah.